Greetings and felicitations. I am Kang and I am Kodos. Just wanted to do something a little different. I haven't done an intro for a while. So there you go. Lot going on, lot to show you as always. Sorry, I mean it's just, there's just always a lot because I'm always in the middle of a lot of stuff. Now, I haven't done an intro for a while because there's just been too much going on. I lost a week working on the air conditioner because of Century Motors. Century Motors. Grainger did a fine job of sending me what I needed. Okay, the unfortunate thing is they got a bad batch of Century Motors and they didn't know it. I had to change the motor in the air conditioning condenser coil 3 times. 3 times. Because they sent me 2 bad motors. Then, Friday at the end of the week, the guy at Grainger finally got a hold of somebody at Century Motors, and they laughed and thought it was funny because they had a whole boatload of motors go out that the little rubber grommet and bushing had been pressed in too tight. So when I fired the condenser up 4 or 5 times, it squealed like the bearings were going to come out and the motor was going to fly through the condenser, or the fan motor shaft was going to fly through the condenser. So anyway, I lost a week because of incompetence at Century Motors. Grainger did a fine job and they technical support, they backed me 100%, but it took them a week to get an answer from Century Motors. Anyway, I got a lot to show you. This is something you've never seen. This is the engineering hall of the 47-inch original series Enterprise that I scratch built. Yes, scratch built. Tell me I recast this and I will laugh at you like I'm laughing right now. This is in scale with the 50-inch refit. Yes, sir. The 50-inch refit, our 50-inch refit that John and I worked on for 7 years. Okay? This is the 120 scale bridge and BC deck that is very close to going into production. And yes, it is a kit and it will be available. Woohoo! This, you recognize that? Woohoo! This is the first plate, the first part made for the 1-to-1 scale Nomad. I am perfect. I am Nomad. This is the first part of the 1/6 scale studio accurate Nomad that I'm creating for Schubert Tam. Now I got a couple other things to show you. This is a studio accurate communication plate for the communicators that you see on the original series. And yes, this was made from an actual master. So it is 100% accurate. I'm going to be remastering this with the same exact measurements with precision laser cut parts so that it looks brand spanking new. So that will be my master, and I will make these available as well as the light indicator, and yes, we've got the accurate amplifier grill. Woohoo! I've got a whole roll of this material. Yeah. This is the case for the desk mount version, and I've got the buttons and the other stuff. So, now as soon as I get this done, I'm also remastering the wall mount communication unit that you always see Quirk talking to, Bridge to Enterprise, Quirk here. I'm remastering that as well. Now, this is probably going to be the last movie that you see any kit reviews for a while. I've got too much going on, I've got too many contracts, too much work, I've got people that I owe work, I've got people asking me for new stuff all the time. So there will be very few model kit reviews. Now on occasion I'm going to follow up on some of the old stuff that I've already started. I will state for a fact that I just found the head to the Mars Attacks Martian, thanks to my wife. Apparently, yet again, Professor Schrodinger, the cat, thought it would be cool to play with, and she found it under the recliner. I had been looking for the head to the Mars Attacks Martian, or whatever, the Mars Attacks Martian, for weeks. And the cat had it. Ugh. I also found a couple of work bees that the cat had squirreled away. All right, well, enough for all the folderol. Let's get to it. Lots of work to show. I've got enough video literally for 3 movies right now, so if you don't see something in this movie, Lance, it will be in the next movie. I devoted a big chunk of the last movie to Lance's build-up, but I don't think a lot of it's going to get into this one. Sorry, next movie, Lance. Take a chill pill. Frank, you too. Schubert, I'm working on it. Trust me, guys, I'm working on it. Mike, Mark, Jack, I'm working on it. I swear to God. Night and freaking day. That's why the sunglasses. I've got bags under my eyes and blue circles from not sleeping. All right, let's get to it. This, my friends, is the Glencoe 3-stage or 4-stage rocket. Nice little kit. I couldn't wait to get this, but I had no idea how diminutive it was. It is literally as big as the directions and as big as the picture on the box, which isn't very large at all. Now this is 288 scale, which accounts for that. So it's roughly half the size, obviously, of a 1/44 scale. Now, I really want to do a larger version of this. I just really want to do a bigger version of this. I'm not sure whether I want to go 1/44 scale and double the size, or go 1/72 scale and literally quadruple the size. Haven't quite decided yet. Now the kit comes with a whole lot of little engine pieces that go in underneath. I've got it sitting on an aspirin cap right now. This is very similar. In fact, it's an almost exact replica of the design of the America bomber that Wernher von Braun originally designed, but he also turned it into a multi-purpose moon ship and spaceship. If you look in YouTube, you'll find a Disney movie called Man in Space with Wernher von Braun that shows exactly what the plans were that he had for this. Now this is a really interesting historical and science/science fiction kit. Again, it's just a little smaller than I anticipated. I think it's an interesting kit, if for no other reason but nostalgia, and to have a little bit of what was pre-NASA history. All in all, I picked this up for about 20 bucks. I would recommend the kit, especially to rocket enthusiasts and those who are history buffs and are interested in science, science fiction, and space exploration. At any rate, there you go. Here is an old Aurora kit, the Planet of the Apes Cornelius. Now, I don't know if anybody's repopping these anymore, but I know you can still find them at a pretty decent price online, especially on eBay. It's pretty much what you see on the front cover art. I've already started playing with this, obviously. I'm going to use this as sort of some background material after I modify it for a Guardian Gate build-up that I'm doing. I'm going to be adding some other things, but in particular, I wanted to modify and expand some of what's here to add to the Guardian base. I've already built one of these a long time ago, and I've still got the base. I don't know where Cornelius is, so I'm going to go ahead and build Cornelius and put him on the base that I've already done, and I will show the base later. At any rate, If you're a fan of Planet of the Apes, you can still find these kits online. I think it's a nice little kit. Not too keen on the posing, but you know, you can always modify that yourself with a Dremel and a little work. At any rate, here it is, the Aurora Planet of the Apes Cornelius kit. Oh look, it's another Mobius Models kit review. Ooh. This is the 1/350th Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea view. And guess what? It's tiny. It's a little bitty thing. This will give you some scale. When I sit this next to the upper primary hull of the 1/350th original series Enterprise, now this is about the size of a, I don't know, a Boomer or Fast Attack. I would have to go look, because I worked on a sub base for years, but I can't remember the overall lengths. This is relatively a little larger than your average submarine from anywhere from the 50s to the 70s, before the Ohio class and so on. At any rate, this is a really simple kit. Very few pieces altogether. Naturally, I've got a different idea on how I want to mount this onto a base, so I'm going to be doing some modifications on this. This kit, believe it or not, an earlier version of this kit sold on eBay a couple of months ago for $250. If you went to try to find this kit on eBay, same kit, different box art, it cost $250, period. And I was like, there's just no way. Then I found out a couple of weeks ago that this was back on the market with new packaging, same kit. So I am so glad I'm not the kind of guy that will pay $250 for something like this. I mean, you look at that next to my hand, that shows it's not a very big kit. At any rate, it's a nice clean kit, plenty of parts. It's going to be an easy build, at least for me. Can't wait to get it done, but I don't have time to work on it right now. I will show it next to the 1/128th scale ship and another 350 ship. More on this later. Look what I have here. An AMT repop of the Mr. Spock, Star Trek's most popular character model. Woohoo! I've been wanting one of these for a long time. Never could get one at a decent price. Finally got this one at a decent and acceptable price. So, let's open it up and see what's inside. Well, we've got 2 bags of parts, 1 page of directions, and a paint guide. That's it. So, I'm going to go ahead and glue this together because there's nothing left to it but painting. I'm thinking about lighting it, putting a phaser beam coming out of Spock's phaser. So let me look at all the parts and see how hard that's going to be. Maybe add a soundboard. Woohoo! Okay, it looks like right here, if you add a notch on both sides of the phaser that goes down into the hand, you could run a fiber optic through the hand, back into the body, down the leg, and into the base where you could hide your LED. Additionally, it looks like you might be able to maybe drill out the eyes and add some fiber optics and make the eyes red. All you really need to do is use clear fiber optics and some filters, or maybe a red LED and a blue LED. So I might try that. We shall see. Okay, well, it took a matter of minutes to glue together the sub-assemblies, and yes, I think I'm going to be able to light this real easily. Yes, yes, yes. I may even have some lights coming up from underneath, sparkling different colors or what have you. So we're going to have red lights in the snake's head. We're going to have, I haven't quite decided on red, yellow, green, or blue phaser fire. I want to do something different than the red eyes. So maybe I'll go with orange eyes and green phaser fire or yellow phaser fire, and then put some other different colored little blinkies down here to look like some kind of phosphorescent photosensitive thingies. Some photosensitive plants, phosphorescent plants. I need more coffee. Okay, so we will check back on this another day. I'm not going to take any time with it today. It took me like 5-10 minutes to glue the little sub-assemblies together. I've got a real good plan. All I've got to do is notch the phaser, run a fiber optic down into the hand, into the body, down the leg, and through the right foot. That's why I haven't attached the right foot, because I want to make sure I come up through here at a good angle to run the fiber optics. Anyway, this should look neat and interesting when it's all said and done, and I may even try to add a soundboard. Won't that be fun? Spock here, Captain. I seem to have some difficulty. Fascinating. And here we have another project I've been wanting to do for a long time. I got contracted to do a 1/6 scale Nomad that was accurate and had lights and sound, so I've been working on that. While working on that, I've been doing a lot of research, and I decided to go ahead, and here we have the first main plate of the main body of the Nomad. So yes, I will be building a complete 1:1 scale Nomad, and if you want, if you like, if you're interested, I will make a kit, and or I will build you one or sell you one. Woohoo! Can't wait to get this done, but it ain't gonna go real quick. Got a lot of other work to do. I've been using screen captures to get accurate dimensions because the blueprints that are available are not 100% accurate. I'll show some more of that at another date or on my blog. Anyway, let's have a look at the bridge and BC deck. And here we see some of the recent work on the 1/120th scale bridge and BC deck that I've been working on. I just hit it with a heavy coat of white, flat white, on the BC deck while I'm continuing to work on the bridge, do the final bit of cleanup and detail work on the bridge. I really hope to have this lighted in the next video with blinkies and everything while I work on the interior of the officer's lounge. As you can see, I've got a nice flat coat of white, and all I got to do is let this set up for a couple of days, because I went over and epoxied all the weak joints to strengthen them. So I'm going to sand all this down and hopefully shoot it with gloss and have it ready to go next week, at least ready to light. Okay, well, I've had so many 90% finished models that I went ahead and finished one. All I was missing on this was the back end of the main fuselage and the two engines. I finally glued those parts on. I'm going to paint them up, and that will be done until I decide to add electronics. I really want to add electronics to this, so I've built it in such a way that I can pull it back apart, run my wiring and run my electronics, and come up with a different base attachment. So we may be seeing this in the future, but right now I don't have time to wire this up. I've got too many contracts to work on. But I did want to show, I did find the engines and the rear end of the fuselage, did put that on, so that much is done. I'm thinking seriously about, when I do like this, I'm going to run some blue lights through the back of the exhaust. We shall see another day. Okay, let's do a little size comparison. Here we have the 1/350th Seaview, right? There's my hand, see, blah, blah. Okay, now, here's the 1/128th Seaview. See the difference? Massive. Massive. It's amazing how much mass is actually displaced when you double something. Now, Think about this. Let's say this is the 1/350th Enterprise refit from Polar Lights, okay? Well, this is the 1/20 scale refit Enterprise from me and John. Gotta love it, huh? Anyway, there's the size difference. Wow. Okay, the Polar Lights kit is 350. Our ship is 1/120, so it's roughly the same size variance. Now, let's look at the 1/350th sea view on top of the 1/350th refit primary hull. Okay, this is my buddy Scott's upper primary hull, and on top of it is the sea view. Now for me, having been in the Navy and worked on a submarine base, it was a lot easier for me to grasp the scale of the sea view. Now, when I put the sea view almost its entire length on top of the primary hull, that will give you a real good idea of how big the refit and the original series Enterprise really were. I mean, they were literally the length of an aircraft carrier. And unless you've seen an aircraft carrier up close and personal, you really don't get any kind of grasp of how huge an aircraft carrier is. And to think of something this big built on Earth and taking off into space like J.J. Abrams envisioned it is just mind-blowingly ridiculous to me. There's no way anything this heavy could get off of the planet in one piece. At any rate, this gives you a real good idea of the size. So, that's why I always figured that the original series and the refit were constructed and reconstructed in space above San Francisco. Anyway, that's my thought. So there you go. There's another size comparison. And here we have the massive Battlestar Galactica base. Okay, I had this laser cut after I handcrafted this version. Now at this size, I had this laser cut later, but I sold the master, frankly, because I needed the money. Now, I'm making these up on commission for anybody who wants one. I showed a picture, and we'll show that again, of a fully painted and detailed version of this. I had this all together and painted at one time, and I pulled it apart to clean it up and do a better job, and it sat on the shelf for a while. Now I can go with varying different thicknesses on the parts. I can create it any way you want it. This is big enough to hold 5 or 6 Battlestar Galactica models, or to hang on your wall. Now as you see here, I've got a couple of different angel bodies in different thicknesses. These are the details that go around the perimeter, and these are the small details that go here and there. Now this is really big. I don't know what to use for scale. I got this handy. This is a Star Wars Y-Wing, and as you can see, it's very small compared to the base. Okay, now if anybody wants one of these, please let me know. I will only build them one at a time on contract. It costs me $100 just in parts and labor and laser cutting to make one of these. So it's not going to be cheap, but it will be a custom one-of-a-kind job made just for you to your specifications. Or I can have the parts laser cut to your specs. Let me know and keep on checking. Okay, this is an original series Battlestar Galactica Viper Mark II. This is the old, what is it? Revell kit. I want to make sure that I got the name right because I called one of the models the wrong name last movie. Sorry. We all make mistakes. My bad. At any rate, I bought this back in '08 at Wonderfest off of Steve Iverson. I was floating around at the time trying to get to know some of the people that I had heard so much about on the internet. So I went around and I bought this off of Steve. Unfortunately, I had to put it back in the box and put it back in the garage some time ago. At any rate, I've done a non-traditional paint job because I wanted to show some kind of evolution between the original series and the newer, far superior Battlestar Galactica. I went back and tried to watch one of these old episodes, and it was horrendous. I could not get over how very bad it was. I remember when I originally watched Battlestar Galactica in '78, '79, after Star Wars come out, I thought it was a really bad ripoff of Star Wars. The Cylons just looked a little bit too much like old Darth Vader in chrome. At any rate, I'm going to show some pictures after this little video showing where I did some basic assembly and reconstruction. Now, I did a non-traditional paint job, and I'm going to continue the non-traditional paint job. Put some lights in this bad boy, finish up the cockpit. I've got the little pilot. I never use these stands, never. I've only got one of the little turbine looking dealies. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a couple out of a F-14 Tomcat donor kit. And I'm going to sit this beside the original series Cylon Raider and the next generation, or the new Battlestar Galactica Viper and Raider side by side, because I'm pretty sure they're all supposed to be in the same scale to each other. At any rate, we'll see that in a minute. These are the parts of a 1/6 scale Nomad that is currently on the market. I'm not sure who the manufacturer is, but I've been contracted to build one of these that is lightable with lights and sounds and that is accurate, so that's what I'm doing. My friend sent me this as a reference, and the more I looked at it, the more it looked off to me. So I started doing a little research, and I found that indeed, virtually every piece of it is off. This is the wrong shape, wrong height, wrong thickness. This is way too thick, wrong shape. The details are good on top. They're nice, clean details, but it really needs a lot of cleanup, and it's kind of wobbly shaped. I don't know if the molds were getting bad or what, but it's not got a real good consistent shape. And this is wrong. This is way too thick here. The details are not correct, and it needs a lot of cleanup. So I don't know who manufactures this or makes this or what garage kit guy. Not trying to purposely diss anybody. I just wanted to say, I look at that, I can see all the inaccuracies, so I'm going to be creating a completely new one that's going to be accurate with lights and sounds, and I've been doing a lot of research to that point. So we will see the one. Alright, I wanted to take this opportunity to take some notes on scale modeling. Now, I want a studio accurate model. Actually, I want two. I want a full scale studio accurate model, and I want a 1/6 scale studio accurate model. So, what to do? Now, I was lucky enough to get a set of blueprints from a friend. Thank you. I'd like to say his name, but I don't want to get him any good or bad publicity because, you know, he probably doesn't want to deal with it. At any rate, thank you for the blueprints. You know who you are. If you want, I'll say something in the next movie. Okay, so I got the blueprints. Well, I kept looking at the blueprints and something just looked off. There were some things about the blueprints that just didn't look right. So I went into the original series episode and watched the episode from beginning to end. Then I went back to the beginning and I started taking my own screen captures. Now, when I looked at the screen captures did not match up to the blueprints in any way. Now this is the 1/6 model that is available, and you can see clearly that it's close in some ways, but way off in others. Now when you're making something like this and it needs to be accurate, I can't make something for someone else and have it be a halfway or half done product. Just can't do it. Nobody, because there are enough rivet counters and nitpickers out there that are going to sit there and talk smack about your product or your project until hell freezes over, whether they're right or wrong. But when you can prove every step that you've taken and what you've done, they'll still talk, but their conversation doesn't carry as much weight. At any rate, so what I did is I took a boatload of screen captures and I started looking at the screen captures, looking at this model and looking at the blueprints. I also looked at some CG models, and none of them were accurate one to the other, period. Now, I put part of that down to aspect ratio. The aspect ratio of my computer monitor is different. It's 16.9 compared to the old televisions, which is 4.3 or 4:3. So I tried to compensate for the aspect ratio, and I wasted time. I literally wasted time trying to compensate for the aspect ratio, not realizing that the computer would compensate automatically. So what I did was I went ahead and I made an outline. Now by making this outline, essentially what you've got is the basis for a blueprint. This is where blueprints start. You outline the parts. The thinner the line, the closer the tolerances, the more accurate, the more close the measurements are to the actual studio model. So all you really need is one measurement, and you can scale every aspect of this model as you build it. So after compensating for the aspect ratio and realizing I was wasting my time, I printed my outline up. Now when I printed my outline up, I thought everything was off, so I checked the aspect ratio of the 1/6 part, the aspect ratio of the 1:1 laser cut part, and the aspect ratio of the actual outline. And this is what I came up with. This was the difference between the screen accurate picture and the actual scales, the two separate scales. I was 0.115 off. So that shows how accurate I was. Each one of these is accurate, except for, unfortunately, this model. Now, when you go to make your own blueprints using screen captures, which I've been doing for years, so the first guy that tries to say I copied someone else's method needs to talk to all the people in engineering that I worked with over the last 35 years, because they'll know that that's total BS. I started doing this years ago with the original series Enterprise and used screen captures, high resolution screen captures, to help my friend John when we were building the 50-inch refit. So I don't copy anyone, but I'm saying this is a good method. Now I didn't just use one screen capture. I just printed this up to show as an example and took the measurements and showed the difference. The more screen captures you take, the higher the detail you get, the more accurate your output product will be. So I'm going by one measurement that I got confirmed through a friend that has access to the actual, or had access to the actual Nomad and knew how big it was. So I'm using that measurement overall. At any rate, this is one way to create blueprints, but you've got to get the actual item in the center of the frame with as little parallax as possible. Now perhaps in another video I'll explain how to compensate slightly for some parallax. At any rate, there you go. That's some notes on methodology for creating your own blueprints and using those blueprints to create different scale models. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, I've been working on the 120 bridge and I'm getting ready to paint it. I just wanted to show some of the detail. Now it looks a little rough right now because I've really been working on it to try to clean it up and make it as smooth as possible. I've had to recut every one of those little lines, all the grid lines, and all the lines going around the diameter, circumference, etc. Each one of those had to be cleaned very carefully and individually. Now you should do this in between each time you paint. After it's dry, go back and recut your grid lines and your details. Now I'm getting ready to paint this, but I wanted to show it looks kind of rough and raggedy and jagged in some areas now. That's just because of the contrast between the underlying primer and the flat white. The flat white shows very cleanly, whereas anywhere where I've cleaned up a grid line it may look a little rough. This is due to little dust specks or paint dust getting down in those grid lines, and then you shoot it with paint and you don't realize it until it dries that you've got to dig out a little paint booger. The best way to avoid this is to clean it up like I've done now. Wash it thoroughly with warm to medium tap water. Go over it lightly with a thin, fine-tooth toothbrush and let it dry thoroughly and inspect it before you paint it. Now that's exactly what I'm about to do. But when you see this next, it will be freshly painted, and then we'll discuss what needs to be done after that. Here we have, once again, the bridge and BC deck. This is essentially the entire top level of the Refit Enterprise from the motion picture, the Wrath-A-Con, etc. Now, I've been working on this off and on for a couple of months, probably more like 3 or 4. This is a long, tedious process to get it right. Now, there were a couple of areas that I had to go over with binary epoxy, and that's what you see here. This is where I've sanded through to putty and 2-part epoxy. Now, this could be a little smoother, so I'm going to have to work on that yet some more. This is really smooth, smooth as a baby's bottom, smoother than it looks, but I've got one little bitty thin seam that I need to fill that joint in. I've got these just about where I want them here. There's only a slight difference. You can just barely feel. Can't even hardly catch that with your fingernail, but you can still see it. So I need to sand on these areas some more, obviously. And I've worked really hard on the back here to get it smooth and to shape it correctly. Now I've got most of that done, as well as back here and the top up along the leading edge here. As soon as I get all this done, I'll have to go through here and pull some of the details back out from the front and the sides. And the very last thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to repair and or replace these window posts, because just the least amount of heat and humidity and they warp. I've got one little spot here where it must have been in direct sunlight or got hot or happened during shipping. I'm going to have to smooth all this out, sand it down really well, backfill it, and then recut the edges so that you can see definition between the different levels and the different lines. I got a similar problem right here. The line, the nice sharp line here, has faded away. So now I don't know if that was there originally or not. I'd have to go back to the original pictures, but I'm going to have to redefine that line. At any rate, it's looking really good. Another coat of flat white, and really some people would probably go with it, but I'm not going with it until it's just absolutely 100%. Now, you can see the detail on this. This is extreme close-up. I've obviously got some fine work to do, and I've still got a little bit to do back here to get rid of these lines. Now you can't feel these lines, but you can still see them. So I'm going to have to tape this whole section off, everything but that square, and tape off this section here, and hit that with some more flat white to cover that, and see if I can't smooth that out a bit. There are a couple of little pits here I need to fill in. For some reason they just won't fill in. So I'm going to have to tape this area off, cut around it with an X-Acto, and then put just a wee bit of Bondo or 3M spot putty right there so I get a nice smooth transition. Anyway, there it is. I'd show you the floor plan for the BC deck, but it's not done yet, and in fact it's barely started. But we will see more of this in the future. Alright, I've put a very thin layer of 3M spot putty everywhere where there was an issue. Now, I'm going to let this dry for about an hour. I'm going to lightly sand it with 400 grit, then shoot everything with another coat of flat white. I'm hoping it's sometime really soon I can start painting and detailing this to show exactly what it's going to look like when it's done, and then shooting it with pearl and putting it in silicone. I've been wanting to get this in silicone for a couple of months, but you know, you can only do what you can do, and you can't rush something like this, and people need to know that. Clients need to know it. If you want something to look like it came out of a professional studio, then it takes time. Okay, I wanted to show this really quick. It looks horrible right now, but it's going to look real good in a minute, and I'm probably going to have to go over it more than once. I had a flaw here, and I had a flaw here in the grid line, and on the other side. It couldn't get it smooth enough the way I wanted, so I taped everything off but the area that I needed to work in, and I shot it with a coat of flat white, which I hated to do to go over that pearl, but they're both enamels, so that worked out fine. As you can see, I've still got some pearl in the back, still got my yellow details for the phaser nodes. Now what I'm going to do is, I've already sanded all this down, so I'm going to shoot this with another light coat of flat white. I'm going to let that dry, go over it at least one more time, and smooth everything out. And as soon as that's dry, I'm going to open up these holes a little more for the beauty lights to run up into the neck. Then I'm going to reshoot it with pearl, remove the masking tape in certain areas, and try to blend everything in so it all looks like one smooth, seamless pearl paint job. Let's see how that turns out. As you can see here, I've test fit some of the 3mm LEDs. Now, they're almost a perfect fit when the model is brand new to just fit underneath there, but I'm going to have to wallow this out a little bit because of the putty underneath and the buildup in the paint. Also, I want to get it pointed exactly in the right direction where it needs to go for the beauty light, as you see in the film. Also, I need to open these up, as I stated earlier, to have more room to get them in underneath the neck for the beauty lights for the neck. So we will see that either in this movie or in the next one. Okay, I really wanted to show this. I wanted to show all four of these ships together because they're all supposed to be in the same scale. Now, no matter how you look at it, you see the older version of the Viper, and you have to say that the newer version is slicker, hotter, leaner, meaner, and looks like it's going 70 miles an hour sitting still. The old Cylon Raider, well, it's cool in its own way, its own design, but I gotta say, that's rocking. That is a rocking design there. That looks like something that's mechanical organic. Gee, I got it out. Don't. Now, one thing that gets me is Kara Thrace was supposed to have been able to get up inside a Scar and drive him, right? Well, how'd she do that? Look how big that pilot is next to Scar. I can see where she clearly had to lay down and drive looking forward. Anyway, now, let me pan back. You can see my 4 different Cylon bases back there, depending on how you lay them out or what you use. But I also wanted to show this. Look at this. This is the size of the big ass model base. Now you could easily fit all 4 of those models above this base in the proper relationship. You like that? I do. I love it. I can't get enough of it. I like it. I love it. I can't get enough of it. Anyway, there you go. All 4 ships from the 2 different series, the main fighters, all together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Today's number is 4. Blah. Alright, as you can see here, I've pulled some TOS stuff out for Jack's original series build. I literally pulled 3 models out of the garage. 3 1/350th original series Enterprise models out of the garage because it's going to be 98 plus like 80% humidity for the next few days. And I cannot work out in that heat in that garage, and I don't want all of the parts to start melting and sweating and etc. So I brought several models in, including the 3 original series ships. At any rate, I started pulling all of the parts from 2 different models aside and separating them because, to be brutally honest, I had mixed up some parts. So I separated all of Jack's parts, and I've been going over each and every part individually and inspecting it and taking notes on what needs to be done right now to start assembly. Because I'm going to be stuffing Jack's Enterprise with electronics much the same way that I'm doing with Lance's Refit to get these bad boys moving along. I need to get these things out the door. Now, I'm going to show a little bit more of this, but I'm not going to get really in detail. Suffice to say, again, I'm inspecting every part, making notes, and taking action on each one of those notes one at a time to make minor repairs, clean up sections, and to work through the electronics one more time before I start gluing everything together. I've got to finish up the shuttle bay, which I haven't shown yet. May get to it this movie, I don't know. You will see more of this in a minute. Frankly, this is just, I've been worried about this. The antenna controls unit sits a little too low in there, and I need to run a fiber optic through there on either side for the port and starboard running lights. So I'm going to have to come up with something to firmly set the antenna controls unit on so that it's stable, doesn't move, and I've got room to get that fiber optic in. Now, these antenna controls both go the same way unless you make a minor correction or a minor change to the physical board. There's a little dip pin, I guess you could call it, that you need to cut if you want them to go one way or the other. Now, they rotate in opposing circles. In other words, one's clockwise, one's counterclockwise. So naturally, just to make sure, I'm going back to video to make sure which one turns which way and make sure that I get the right rotation in the right nacelle. So that's where we're at here. These are the detail parts that go for each on each pylon. I want to do some chrome brush on this, or I'm going to try to see about getting some brass done. I would really probably rather do brass. Brass would look so cool. I could put these underneath, paint the brass silver, and you wouldn't be able to distinguish this from a master replicas, except this will have a perfect paint job. Yeah. Anyway, let's have a look at some more parts in just a minute. And here's the lower primary hull. I've shown this before, but I just wanted to make sure that I show this really high detail for my friend Jack. I want to make sure that this is what he wants. Now, I painted this detail instead of using the decal. That's just a personal preference. As you can see here from different angles, I mean, I don't know how this could more perfectly match the actual studio model. But there's the lower primary hull. Now, I will be stuffing lights into this really soon. That's why I'm pulling everything out and inventorying everything and getting everything laid out and taking notes. Here's the upper primary hull of Jack's original series ship. This is, like I said earlier, getting ready to be stuffed full of electronics, and I'm going through double checking everything, cleaning all of the parts with, once again, 91% isopropyl alcohol. It's better if you can get 100%. This does a great job of cleaning any goo off the surface, especially the adhesive that comes off the back of masking tape. This is the real lenticular material that I'm putting inside the finished impulse deck. I wanted to do something with that little hole there, some kind of indicator light, but I didn't know what to do and didn't want to waste any time coming up with more go fasters when I need to get this done. Now, here's the actual standard production bridge, and here is the bridge and BC deck from the pilot versions. Just wanted to show that. Here is the completed bridge that is clear cast and ready for backlighting. So everything's looking good. I do have a couple of things I've got to clean up, but other than that, everything's gonna get packed up in tissue paper, and when I start doing the electronics, one part at a time is going to come out and go and get glued together and held in presses like the pylons. I did the light test on both pylons. They look good. So I think all I need to do is clean up some of the paint off of the ends both ways. Make sure all the wiring's good. I may change the wiring slightly because I want to make sure that I'm running enough wires through the pylon to get good lighting and redundant lighting in case there are any issues, but still keep the pylon sturdy and have room for sufficient wiring without overdoing it. It's just really kind of a game because you have to cut all the interior support structure out to have room to put the parts in and to light it and run wires. So I'm thinking very seriously of incorporating a steel rod through both pylons. We'll see. Here's Jack's engineering hull. Now I do have an issue that I need to straighten up. Apparently, because of heat and humidity, a little bit of the 3M spot putty and the paint decided to flake off in one area. So I'm going to go over that whole section, tape everything off, clean it up, and shoot it with another coat of light gray. I'm going to make sure this is good to go and perfectly ready for assembly before I go any further. The other side looks great, but I still want to do a little cleanup there as well. I want this to be 100% before I fill it full of electronics and assemble it. So that's where I'm at there. Both pylons look great. They're in great shape. They're still warped. I just cannot get over that. I cannot get over that. Oh well, I'm going to have to deal with it. These are all just about ready for assembly. I had to clean them up. I've got to add the rear details to both sides. I've still got a little adhesive here to clean up. A little discoloration from the adhesive. I've got to clean that up. That should be no problem. So moving forward. I've cleaned up most of the adhesive, but I'm going to go ahead and tape this area off and shoot it with a light coat of the proper gray, because I am just not 100% happy with it. I've got to do some cleanup, do some assembly, and sand a couple of areas before assembly and get everything ready so that once everything's assembled and glued together, I can do some taping and shoot some light coats in a couple of areas to cover, and then go over everything with a matte finish, lacquer, or acrylic. Okay, the last couple of notes on the original series. I still need to get a hold of Jack and see if he wants these clear or he wants the pearl end caps. I will probably be hitting the lower sensor dome with a matte finish, but I'm going to keep the bridge dome clear so you can see right through it and see the little bridge. I worked something out, though I'm not going to say anything until I am able to show you 100%. I need to do just a little bit of cleanup here and hit this with another coat of copper before I do assembly, but I'm going to make it so that you can pull this out of the ship and access the electronics in case anything needs to be repaired. So there we go. More on this definitely in the next movie.